Oftentimes in disturbed places like community gardens or the edges of fields, there's quite a variety of edible and medicinal plants that grow in response to the soil being exposed. Because in nature, soil is not typically exposed unless there's a massive erosion problem. So wild and edible plants come in to rectify the exposure of that soil. And one of those plants that comes in is plantain. And there's two types of plantain growing here. There's Plantago lanceolata, which is the slender leaf plantain. It looks like this. It's a very narrow leaf. And the flowering tops are very stubby compared to the other plantain. And then next to that is Plantago major, which is the plantain that I prefer. And this is the one that can be chewed up and placed onto cuts and insect bites, and it speeds wound healing. It's a good coagulant, so if you were bleeding, you would put this on a spot to slow down the bleeding and to encourage growth. And it has a mild antibiotic, antibacterial effect, so a good plant to know. And it's also a pretty tasty leaf. When they're younger, probably this size, they have an almond-like flavor, and they're a good trail-side nibble. But one of the amazing parts about Plantago major are these racemes, or the flowering stalks. And Plantago psyllium is a plant that most people are familiar with. It's psyllium husk. So these plantain racemes can be stripped once they turn brown and dried out and used just like psyllium fiber, so mucinex and things like that that are good for digestive ailments. This does the same exact thing. This variety is just the wild version of Plantago psyllium. So, good plant to know. And it's very tasty in a stir fry, and it just adds some more nutrition to whatever you're cooking if you were to add it in. And next to that is the ubiquitous dandelion, Taraxacum officinale. And the root is a good blood purifier, helps to stimulate bile in the body without stripping potassium away. There's a lot of things that help to move your digestive system have a tendency to strip potassium. But this has a pretty high level of potassium, so whatever it's moving along through your body, it's contributing to your ultimate potassium level. And a little bit beyond that is an abundance of a plant, Glycoma hederaceae. And this is Gill over ground. And this has kind of a minty smell. It's in the mint family, has a square stem, it's aromatic. And this is good as a tea for digestive ailments, like many other mints. It's good for women's menstrual cycles. It helps to bring regularity to them. And it can be made fresh into a tincture. It's not recommended to use it dried, but you can dry and then use it as a tea. But a fresh tincture of the leaves and the flowering tops is best. And this will have purple-colored, short flowering tops once it gets a little bit older. And another amazing edible plant that grows all over the place is Portulaca oleracea, or purslane. And purslane is actually an ornamental plant in many people's gardens, but it's one of the highest levels of omega-3 and omega-6 in nature, even higher than flax and hemp seed. And it's a delicious, delicious green. And these can be eaten raw or put in salads. They can also be pickled. One year I combined a whole jar of these with garlic and dill and raw apple cider vinegar, and I let it sit for about 6 weeks. And it was one of the most delicious pickles I've ever made. A very, very good plant to know. And these can be eaten in abundance without any issue. There's a minor amount of oxalic acid in them, but it's so small and trivial that you wouldn't have a problem with it. One more edible plant that I'll show you is over here. It's Chenopodium album, or Lambsquarters. It's this plant right here. And Chenopodium album is a delicious spinach alternative. I'll move out of the light so you can see a little bit better. any recipe that calls for spinach can use lambsquarters in it. And these have almost a fuzzy, pilly underside. And this is a small amount of oxalic acid, and this white powder rubs off on your fingers. And then it leaves kind of a green spot underneath. But these taste exactly like spinach, and in fact they're in the same family as spinach. So any recipe that calls for spinach, these can be used. Again, it has oxalic acid, but if you were to do some more research on oxalic acid and its effects, which I would encourage you to do, the levels in wild foods are typically less than the levels in our broccoli or in our other cruciferous vegetables that we eat. So it's not particularly a problem to be consuming these in moderation. And to counteract the oxalic acid, you can also add a fat to whatever you're cooking. So if you're making a quiche out of lambsquarters, the eggs and the cheese, or the alternatives to those, would counteract the oxalic acid that's present inside of it. Hope this inspires you to go out and identify some new plants, and have a good day.